Hi, I'm Paul Harmer, the Technical Director of the Chartered Institute of Plumbing and Heating Engineers. I'd like to welcome you here today to this Tech Talk Live on a realistic approach to saving carbon. I would like to pass you over to the Technical Director of Worcester BOSCH, Martin Bridges.
Hello, I'm Martin Bridges, and today I want to give you an update on the energy policies we've experienced probably over the last 7 or 8 years. In 2010, the coalition government was voted in. So this was a coalition between the Liberal Democrats and the Tory party, and a number of policies were put in place to make the take-up of renewable technologies a lot more appealing and incentivising to customers. The policies basically haven't worked that well, and in the general election of 2015, the Conservative Party were voted in, and the Treasury started taking a lot more interest in what policies were in place. So what they've decided to scrap in recent times are things such as the subsidies for solar PV have gone down from the original 43p per kilowatt hour to just over 4p. Biomass boilers, the subsidies there have been reduced twice now. The eco scheme, which is concentrating essentially on the fuel poor, where people pay more than 10% of their income on fuel, that actually has been remodelled and is specifically concentrating even more so on the fuel poor. The Green Investment Bank's been sold off. The road tax rate for green cars, that was originally either zero or reduced from 2017, it won't be. Zero carbon homes, that's been scrapped, so every new home from 2016 was due to be built with zero carbon. That has now been deferred, delayed, even though we're still signed up to deliver that. There is also an agenda from the government to reduce the tax burden on end users. So currently around £110 of your fuel bill goes on subsidising green levies or green incentives. That is proposed to be reduced. And finally, fracking in some of Britain's most important nature sites, well, that's been relaxed as well, and the government are actually allowing that to take place in certain places. So what's the new position of the government? What are they doing to replace these incentives which were in place? Well, there's a new focus from DEC. This is the Department for Energy Climate Change, and they're trying to reduce carbon emissions still, but without the incentives and the green levies being placed upon the homeowner as a burden. So their main importance is really to emphasise or enforce things which are already in place. So currently a condensing boiler, that's the minimum practice, but they also want to enforce the controls requirement. Presently, you need to fit a programmer and a room thermostat. Statistics tell us there are twice as many programmers being purchased than there are room thermostats. They want to rearrange that. Thermostatic radiator valves, that's going to be a requirement, very likely that they're fitted on every radiator. Important things for us from a boiler manufacturer perspective, the flushing, cleansing and or cleaning of systems, inhibiting of systems, and the installation of a system filter as well. And finally, 2 items which really are close to our heart. The annual boiler servicing, that isn't currently a requirement in the homeowner situation. It is in landlord-tenant situations. That needs to be recognised as a requirement to aid efficiency and to reduce carbon. So there you have it. That's a short summary of the policies which are being worked upon and hopefully will come into force on the 6th of April 2017. We'll keep you updated through the normal communication methods between then and now as to how these policies are evolving.
Thank you very much today at Worcester BOSCH for discussing these valid points. We've been involved with this subject for quite a while now. So how do you think this will end up now with DEC in the future?
Well, that's a good question. DEC have just been morphed into a new government department, which is pronounced BEIS. And at the moment, the actual project or the initiative is in a sort of lull period, but they want to bring it out in probably May, June of next year. So I believe their agenda is to make a central heating system more efficient. They are acutely aware that the Green Deal failed and failed miserably, so they want to make the best of what we presently use today. So a condensing boiler, a flushed and cleansed condensing boiler at that, the minimum set of controls, but they also want to add some further technology to it, such as a weather sensor or a load compensator or a flue gas heat recovery system. There's about 6 different technologies being appraised. So I suspect we will end up with a change to the Domestic Heating Compliance Guide or the Building Services Compliance Guide, where the minimum system you will be able to fit will be an ERP rated boiler of 92% or higher, room thermostat, programmer or timer, TRVs on all the radiators, and one of these 3 or 4 other technologies, which is probably the easiest to fit, would more than likely be a weather sensor or a load compensating thermostat or this flue gas heat recovery system. Or there are other things they are presently looking at as well, but only time will tell, I guess.
So Martin, are you aware of any other further initiatives that might be of interest to our members?
Well, there's always something on the move, as you know yourself. And I guess the most impacting thing which is being debated, and I'm very concerned, or not concerned, I'm very convinced it's going to happen, is the benchmark initiative. Okay. So benchmark, you might be aware of, was the commissioning document, of course, and the service interval sheet in the boiler publication. GasSafe want to embrace that and make the actual commissioning checklist the submission document that an installer would provide to them when they submit for building regulation approval. So that's a great leap forward. The majority of what's presently on the benchmark checklist will be the submission document. But to add to that as well, they want to include the service interval schedule along with it. So how it works is still being worked out, but effectively every boiler installed from a date in the future will have almost like a folder of its own online on the GasSafe website. And every time the boiler is serviced, the engineer will have to update the details to say that he serviced it, what parts he may have changed. So any engineer can then subsequently visit it and check the history. Almost like an online logbook, shall we say.
So that will benefit the consumer, I'd have thought, because they've got to update if they maybe some radiator valves have changed.
Yeah.
They drain the system down. They'll have to report that there's some inhibitor put back in the system, do you think? Or?
Yeah, very much, yeah. All those things will then form part of the service interval requirements of the boiler manufacturer. So he can include in there proactive replacement of parts if it came to it. So, I don't know, a gasket or an electrode lead or something like that, a thermocouple. So, almost like a car where you take your car in and they tell you, we're going to change the oil filter and the oil, even though it's working perfectly okay. That may well be the outcome of this benchmark initiative. So, yeah, I'm quite enthusiastic about it, and particularly with the long warranties nowadays on boilers, that warranty is only kept valid or open if it's annually serviced. So for the members' perspective, I think if this goes ahead, there'll be a lot more ongoing work, particularly service work, available.
And then the design of systems. People, understand that condensing boilers are efficient when they're condensing at that return temperature. So, I've seen over the years, with the introduction of heat pumps, the way they're, designing them to get the delta T at 5 degrees, for example, and getting that mean water temperature down low. Whereas gas boilers, obviously it's a higher flow temperature, which has been a bit of a limiting factor, but actually, if you design it correctly with quite much a larger temperature difference between the flow and return, it actually can work and operate very efficiently.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things DEC have recognised in this Boiler Plus investigation. Some of the work they've asked for evidence on is the sizing of radiators, the automatic balancing of systems, the weather and load compensation, which will obviously bring the boiler flow and return temperatures down as low as they possibly can, so the boiler condenses more. So they are aware of the limitations as well, that by and large when you fit a new boiler, the system more often than not is already in place.
Yes.
So there's some initiative to actually try and encourage homeowners to change to more modern, highly efficient radiators, and at that point change the delta T permanently to a 50-30 or a 70-50 or something like that.
Or underfloor heating.
Or underfloor heating, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Martin. It's been an excellent day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Martin Bridges, the Technical Director of the Worcester BOSCH Group today, for discussing a realistic approach to saving carbon. There's 3 key points here that we believe the industry should pay attention to. 1, a correctly designed system, whether it be the pipework or the selection of the heat emitter, whether it be underfloor heating or a radiator. Number 2 is protect your system. Clean it and also put an inhibitor in there. And thirdly is an annual service of the boiler. This will ensure maximum efficiency. If you have any questions about this Tech Talk Live today, feel free to contact the CIPHE.